is truly a day of celebration, for it marks not the beginning of a new relationship, but the combining of these two lives where a strong bond, perhaps an almost invisible bond, has existed quite literally for several decades. After hearing their love story, I firmly believe that Susan and John were destined to be together. Susan and John's relationship has an absolutely amazing history that dates back 34 years. Susan was still in high school working at McDonald's. John was employed as an iron worker. Even at this early age, they were simply crazy about each other. Their love for one another grew deeper during the 2 years that they dated. Unfortunately, sometimes fate steps in and throws us a curve. This curve was caused by John's work. John moved to New York. Susan stayed behind and finished high school. The distance and the time apart eventually caused them to go their separate ways. As time passed, John and Susan's lives took paths in very different directions. Even so, Susan told me that from time to time over the years, when she least expected it, she would hear an old song and she would think of John and remember all the good times they had together. Then, some 32 years later, just like in the movies, once again, fate stepped in and changed the course of both of their lives in an instant. You can call it fate, you can call it karma. I call it a truly beautiful love story. One day 2 years ago, almost magically, their paths through life took a sudden and wonderful turn in the same direction. Susan was at work listening to the radio. Later that morning, she mentioned to a coworker that she had heard an old song that triggered off wonderful memories of her first and only true love, John Brack. To her surprise, as the hours passed, Susan couldn't stop thinking about John. In fact, she spent the rest of the day thinking of nothing but him. With each passing hour, her thoughts of him grew deeper, as sweet memories of their time together so long ago drifted almost uncontrollably through her head. Later that evening, when Susan got home, she decided to check her email. Lo and behold, to her surprise, there upon her screen was a message from this man whose memory had been so embedded in her thoughts throughout the day. Just like in a romance novel, totally out of the blue, John Brack had sent her an email. He told her that he looked her up on the internet because he had been thinking about her and he was wondering how she was doing. Wow, you talk about a great plot for a movie. This is it. Susan sat there for a moment, just staring at her screen. She could hardly believe her eyes. After somehow managing to catch her breath, she immediately answered his email with just a little information about herself. He wrote back just as quickly. And so, by way of their keyboards, they opened, or perhaps I should say reopened, a new and exciting chapter. They made plans to meet at Applebee's. When John walked in, he took one look at her. In his eyes, she still looked like the same 16-year-old girl standing behind the counter at McDonald's, wearing her little blue dress and the most gorgeous smile he had ever seen in his entire life. If I remember correctly, the word that Susan used to describe this initial meeting was bliss. John made his feelings very clear also. He said that he knows that their being together is, and I quote, so right, so meant to be. For you see, from their first hello, they both felt as if they had never been separated. I have been privy to many stories as to how couples' path through life leads them to this, their wedding day. I can honestly say that I have never heard a more beautiful love story than the way Susan and John managed to find each other again after so many years. I believe that each of us goes through life consciously, or perhaps subconsciously, searching for our soulmate. Unfortunately, many people search in vain and never find that special person. Looking back, there can be no doubt that John and Susan found theirs very early in life. And then, unfortunately, circumstances caused them to lose touch with each other for a period of time. How better than wonderful it is to know that they have found each other once again. Perhaps this is the reason that our book of life is so exciting. We never know what will be written on the next page. Susan and John have been apart for so many years, this day will forever be extra special to them. It will be remembered as the day when the mutual love they felt for each other so many years ago was rekindled into this deep love and devotion they feel today. It is also important to remember that it is the little things that are the big things. You must remember to praise each other's accomplishments and overlook each other's faults. A content and happy marriage is something that is desired by many and achieved by few. I can think of two very important words in a relationship: These words are cherish and appreciate. If you truly cherish and appreciate what you have found in each other, you will experience many years of joy while you share your hopes and dreams. One of life's greatest lessons is realizing that regardless of the hundreds of love songs written telling us all about perfect love, in the real world, there is no perfect relationship, just as there are no perfect people. I believe that the best we can hope for in this life is to find someone who, perhaps not perfect, is simply perfect for you. There is no doubt in my mind that Susan and John have found their perfect person. But whatever you do, do not expect your husband to wear a halo or your wife to wear the wings of an angel. Do not look for perfection in each other. Instead, try to practice flexibility, patience, and understanding. Above all else, never lose your sense of humor. I know that you love each other very much, of that there is no doubt. However, no one has ever said that marriage is easy. But then again, we all know that nothing truly worthwhile having is. Love and life are always changing, always challenging. But these changes and these challenges will be easily resolved if you are simply willing to say, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me. Susan has asked me to express some of her feelings for John in her own words. John, will you take Susan to be your wife from this day forward, to love, to protect, and to cherish through good times and bad, and do you promise to always give her your deepest devotion? If so, please answer, Susan, I will. Will you take John to be your husband from this day forward, to love, to protect, and to cherish through good times and bad? And John, do you promise, please repeat after me? Susan, I'm asking you to be my wife. What token of your devotion do you have to offer each other?
We have
rings. From the earliest of times, the circle has been the symbol of completeness. As unbroken and never-ending circles, rings symbolize a love that is never-ending. Whenever you look at these rings, I want you to be reminded of the deep love you feel for each other and of the promises you have made here today. John, by placing this ring on Susan's finger, please repeat after me. Susan, I give you this ring. You have sealed your relationship by the giving and receiving of rings. This covenant is a relationship pledge between two people who agree that they will commit themselves to one another throughout their lives. Without question, the most beautiful example of a partnership is a marriage relationship. You have committed here today to share the rest of your lives with each other. Today, this relationship is symbolized with the pouring of two individual containers of sand into and the other one, Susan, is representing you, all that you are, all that you were, and all that you will ever be. Just as the sand in these containers can never be separated, so your lives are joined together forever. You can both kind of pour at the same time, just so that they weave in together. Just as these grains of sand may never be separated and poured back into individual containers again, so will your marriage be. Please remember that love can also be shown by a soft word or a gentle touch, or simply by two thoughts entwined as one. May your two lives now be joined together into one unbroken circle. May your relationship continue to grow in compassion and understanding. May the home that you have established together be filled with love and laughter, so that all who know you will smile and say, "This is good." Now, by the power granted to me by the state of Florida, I am very pleased to proclaim that you may now call yourselves by those old and respected names of husband and wife. May the Lord bless this union. You may kiss your bride. It is my pleasure to present Mr. and Mrs. John Brack. Yay! Congratulations.